There's an idea that everything old will eventually be new again, and you can see that clearly in some recent products like the Game & Watch re-release from Nintendo. Retro handhelds have long pushed for the dual nostalgia of playing your favorite retro games with a retro-inspired design, and the RG300X is the latest example vying for your gaming dollar. How's it going, everyone? My name is Taki, and today we're going to take a look at the new RG300X to see if it's worth a spot in your collection. The 300X comes in two color styles, but we're going to spend most of our time looking at the red and gold option while we go over the build of the device. This color option happens to be my favorite of the two. You can see that we have a fairly standard representation of the Game Boy Micro Famicom edition with a controller decal in the top left corner and button labels on the faceplate. Unfortunately, we also have front-facing LEDs, but these are much stronger than the ones in the Micro. I find that most people who buy Anbernic products are repeat customers, and the company is very consistent with the buttons they use and the feel of the buttons themselves. If you are new, the D-pad is very responsive with a decent amount of travel. These use conductive rubber and require a small amount of pressure to reach the point of contact. Input lag is negligible, so you should see an action happen on screen after you press a button right away. This probably isn't news to anyone watching this video, but when I say conductive rubber, I mean that there's a small circle in the silicone rubber that presses against the copper connector on the PCB to register input. The opposite style of this is a contact switch, similar to the ones used on the shoulder buttons. These register input immediately when you press, and they have a small click to them. For the ABXY buttons, you'll see the input register at the final range of the button press. The 300X uses inline shoulder buttons like all of their devices. You will notice that R2 and L2 are slightly raised, so when you have your finger rested on the top, you can press R2 and click R1 without moving too much. There isn't much that uses the second shoulder buttons on this system, but it is very fluid to go from one to the other. With this style, you won't have to move like this. Everything else here is fairly standard fare. We have dual USB Type-C ports, with one for charging and the other for some limited use. More importantly, there's an HDMI port in the center, making this a great use as a controller hooked up to a TV, and I'll show off some HDMI captured video later in this review. Aside from this, there's a volume rocker on the left side and a power button on the right. The bottom holds a headphone jack, two SD card slots, with one of them containing the OS and the other holding ROMs, and a reset button on the side. Let's talk about the case itself before moving on. As you can see, there's a reflective paint finish on this, and it does look nice on camera in this lighting setup. Unfortunately, this is a bit of a fingerprint magnet. If you look at the front, even though it has the same finish, it's harder to see any markings with the gold faceplate. The same cannot be said for the other model with the black faceplate. This reflects everything, and it's very easy to see fingerprints on it. The back is the opposite. If we compare this to the RG280V, that device has a metal faceplate that is also reflective, but it looks more premium. Although not faithful to the Micro, this matte texture would have been much better in this case. The grip is better, and you wouldn't have to worry about cleaning it as often because it rejects fingerprints and smudges. If we compare the silver models, I think the silver finish is much better on the front than this black faceplate. Both of the backs are decent, so there's no clear winner here, but this is entirely up to personal preference. Now, let's talk about those front LEDs. I've been told that these are going to change on the retail version, but I did want to show off how powerful these are by shutting off my studio lights. You can see that these both throw a lot of light, and I am not a fan. I'll be modding these and showing you some options if you want to do the same. On a better note, the screen is really decent on this device, and it is much better than the product that inspired this design. It's a 3-inch diagonal with a resolution of 640 by 480, which isn't going to mean a whole lot on this device, but for PS1 games and some ports, you're going to see improved picture quality over the 240p handhelds. If we compare the 300X to the 300M, you can see that the 300X isn't really that much smaller, and this is a complaint that somebody mentioned on my community post. It would have been nice to get a bigger screen in the 300X, or to make the overall size of the unit smaller by changing the layout slightly. You can see that the brightness level is a little lower on the 300X, and the color temperature is a little different. Using DK1 as an example, you can see that the ground texture has a yellowish tint to it, but I would say that the panel is pretty well balanced, and it's one of those things that you only really notice when you're looking at something side by side. Color temperature is only an issue when it's too far to one extreme, and that's not the case here. Since we're already here, I will say that the stereo speakers that we have here are really good. They have a decent amount of bass, and they can get loud enough to hear in a busy area. Here's how they sound recorded over a microphone. In terms of comfort and playability, the 300X is far superior to the Micro in every way. It's comfortable to hold in the hand, and the screen is large enough to see without having this very close to your face. Because the device is larger, it also works well as a controller when you have this device hooked up to HDMI. The screen goes black and the image will just show on your TV screen. If you are new to this system and the other RG line of devices that came before it, the RG300X comes pre-installed with many emulators out of the box. This is using the stock firmware, but there is another firmware that you could use. Generally speaking, you don't really ever need to worry about changing the firmware unless there's something specific that you want to use, like the Super Mario 64 port, for example. Depending on the product you buy, you will most likely have a ton of ROMs included with your device. This isn't really a selling point for me, but I did want to mention that there are more games here than you could ever realistically finish in your life. After a quick teardown, we can see the JZ4770 processor that just will not die. I really hope that this is the final product that Anbernic makes with this processor because the market is very saturated right now. There is one commendable thing that I haven't talked about with Anbernic products, and it's that they use these brass threads in their screw holes. These add to the cost of making a device more than you would think, and they don't have an immediate benefit to the end user, so it's a strange cost for the manufacturer to take on. Whenever you open up the device more than 2 times, however, these brass threads save your screw holes, allowing you to open and close the device without fear of stripping the plastic. Here's that front LED assembly that I was talking about earlier. If these are too bright for you on the retail device, you could put some black tape on them to cut the light. For my unit, I'm going to break 3 of these LEDs and put some tape over the 4th to still have the ability to see battery and charge status without being blinded in the dark. The performance of the JZ4770 is already well documented all over my other videos for this platform, but I will just quickly go over what it can do with some footage recorded directly from the device. NES is going to run very well on this, as are the majority of SNES games. There might be some dips in select games, but it is generally well supported here. Game Boy and Game Boy Color are also well supported, as is GBA. There are only a few compatibility issues in select games, but everything will generally work well. Game Gear, Master System, and Sega Genesis are also well supported on this platform, and it does include most of the libraries for those systems. You'll also be able to play WonderSwan, Neo Geo Pocket, and Neo Geo games on the 300X. That leaves us with PC Engine and decent arcade performance for MAME and a lot of FBA games. PlayStation 1 runs well on this system, but you might not be completely free from FPS dips in demanding games. If there's a PS1 game that you want to play, check to see if there's already footage of it running on the 4770 before you make your purchase. I have a large video of PS1 games running on the RG350 linked on screen if you want to see more of what this can do. That leaves us with the price. This is retailing for around $90 at the time of making this video, which is pretty steep for a 4770 product in 2021. Anbernic products always tend to carry a price premium, so this doesn't really surprise me. As for who this device is for, I think the primary reason to buy this comes down to the styling. There really is no other point to get this over one of the older and cheaper 4770 products from Anbernic. Anyway, that's it for this review. If you like what you saw here and you want to support my channel, please consider leaving a like down below. If you want to see more videos like this, feel free to check out one of the videos on screen now. Happy gaming, everyone. Taki out.